Woo! All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to, or welcome back to TBN. TBN. Yeah. This is the live stream where we sort of focus down on what really matters, in my opinion, in the vape world, and that is news, facts, and science. We do advocacy, we do activism, we talk about smoking, we talk about policy, we talk about science, we talk about nicotine. I think that's it. We talk about taxes, evidence, taxes, and today we have a very special guest joining us, a friend of the program. It's Charles Gardner PHD. Welcome to the stream, Charles. How are you doing today?
Very good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's 6:30 p.m. my time. I've had my coffee, my late coffee, and I'm ready to roll.
You're ready to roll. You're having coffee this late, Charles?
Yeah, it never keeps me awake.
Really?
And by the way, I am mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore, Grimm.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that about you. I've said that in my head at least 1,000 times. And it's one of those things where you feel like you can't get any madder than hell, and then a new day on Twitter dawns, and you see so much more misinformation and disinformation and lies that you go, well, I guess I can be madder than hell. I didn't know I could achieve this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's always 2 steps forward, and then there's another 1 step back.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, so I never plug products ever, especially say for nicotine products. But I do want to plug one thing.
Oh, plug away.
Yeah, I recommend this as a holiday gift for anyone.
Yes.
For anyone to give to a smoker, or basically for everybody to read themselves. Because I think this is an absolutely wonderful book by Colin Mendelsohn. This book itself will save thousands of lives. And
plug away. I'll put a shopping link for that in the description. Now, so that's describe what. Just talk about that book. Have you read it already?
I have read parts of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it literally just came in the mail, so I haven't had time to read the whole thing.
Well, I wasn't sure. You know, Charles Gardner, I feel like you could have just said, yeah, I already read it, and I definitely would have believed you. What have you gleaned from it so far?
Vaping is good, and it helps save lives. And so what he does is he goes through the evidence. It's very well referenced. It's very clear. Colin is like, his goal here is to reduce horrible death from cancer, heart, and lung disease, and it really takes you through the issues that we all deal with, and it will arm you with a lot of evidence.
Yeah,
because he's had some time to think about this.
Yeah,
he's in Australia. There's a strong Australian focus, but they're one of the canaries in the coal mine here, and so he's a great advocate, and he doesn't vape and he doesn't smoke.
Yeah, he just cares. That's the thing. He's just a doctor and he cares.
Yeah, I used to work at the Rockefeller Foundation, and one of my mentors there was an absolutely hyper intelligent person named Ariel Pablos Mendez, Mexican guy. And one of the things I appreciated about him was he had very fixed ideas. He viewed the whole global health field as a kind of evolving landscape, and it was literally, he could describe the terrain and how it was changing. But what I loved was when I could come to him with new data, I could come to him with new evidence, and I could literally see the gears turning in his brain, and he would immediately come to a different conclusion based on the new evidence. I mean, obviously, I was only bringing him evidence, stuff he didn't know, stuff that might be relevant to the questions we were dealing with. And that's such a rare thing. You look at somebody like David Abrams, who also came into this field also not a smoker, also not a vapor, but very strong public health. I mean, he was the director of behavioral research at the National Institutes of Health for years. And he came diametrically opposed to safer nicotine alternatives. And he looked at the evidence, and he changed. And he changed his mind. That's such a rare thing that people don't get fixed and fixated on, the preordained conclusions or the.
Right. We've always done it this way.
The church dogma, yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing. And that's interesting because, I have one hero in my life. It's Penn Jillette, the other half of the Penn and Teller Magic Comedy team. I love this man like a father. Like without Penn Jillette, there would be no Nick Green. I mean that very literally in the way that I think, in the way that I view the world, in the way that I form my opinions and be a skeptical person. And from listening to him for so long, I just assumed that that's the way that science is supposed to work. I mean, that is the way that science is supposed to work. The idea that scientists should be excited about the idea of possibly being wrong about something in light of new evidence and getting to change your opinion or your theory based on this new evidence, and that new evidence was always a welcomed thing into the field. And then I started vaping, and that doesn't seem to be what's going on. And that's what confuses me is now someone who changes their mind based on new evidence kind of seems like a unique unicorn when really that should be kind of the standard, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, technically I'm a scientist too. And the thing is, scientists are human. And often approach problems with some preconceived notions.
Sure.
And history is just full of examples where science has gotten things wrong. You can go back to the 1920s, 1930s, Lysenkoism in the former Soviet Union.
Yeah.
We don't really want to talk about that, but I could talk at length about that. But it was. Sure. It's a false notion of how genetics and evolution work. You can go back to phrenology, where back in the late 19th century,
is that the skull study?
There was a whole pseudoscience of we could measure the bumps on your head. There was a bump that would measure your criminal tendencies and your amorousness and your whatever.
Sure,
it's all nonsense.
Sure. Right.
So we are prone to accepting a lot of nonsense.
I feel like over time that the nonsense should get sort of weeded out. That it's like reflexology and things like this, where it's like it seems like a lot of woo-woo and it can't really stand up to scrutiny. And I think that's one of the great things, I guess, about progress in science is that you're always trying to improve it and make it better. And things like feeling the bump for my criminal, how long really did that sort of go on? How long did people really wholeheartedly go, yes, this bump does represent how long I'm going to live? And I believe that wholeheartedly before it was like how could anyone have ever believed that type of thing?
I think the question is, have we entered a post-Enlightenment era? And I think a lot of people would say, yes. I'm a glasses half full guy. I do think that the evidence prevails in the end. And, it doesn't help when, for example, controversial topic, climate change, global warming, right? 98% of climatologists believe one way and 2% believe the other way.
Sure.
And so that's a pretty strong indication of where the facts and the evidence lie.
Yes.
But when you get a bunch of fossil fuel companies spending tens of millions of dollars on a kind of merchants of doubt campaign, which they learned from the tobacco industry, to convince people that not the opposite, but that simply that experts disagree.
Yes, that there's not a scientific consensus on this.
So yeah, then things are held back, and ironically, that's what's happening in the tobacco control field now, but in reverse. So merchants of doubt tactics, which is convince the public that the experts disagree. That's 40 years ago. It was a very clever strategy. I mean, basically pure evil, but it was a very clever strategy 40 years ago. But now that's being used in the opposite direction, and I think that's what we all see, because those of us following the evidence as it comes up see the bias and see. You and I were discussing this just before we came on air. I think one of my observations is that there is still a legitimate debate that can be had here in public health if people can get beyond the ad hominem arguments. And so, for example, the American Medical Association has looked at all the evidence and they've come to one conclusion. And the British Medical Association has looked at all the evidence and they've come to the complete opposite conclusion. Okay.
Like on another planet conclusion.
Right. But where is the neutral space? Where is the convener? Where's the neutral convener that could bring together experts from those two organizations to respectfully discuss the evidence, have a debate, because there are millions of lives in the balance here. But this, we have what we have there are two completely different echo chambers.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I mean, I can't think of a better word than crazy to me to see how diametrically different the United Kingdom and the United States are treating safer nicotine products like vaping. And the idea that the UK, I know we got some UK people in the chat tonight. T-Vapes, I see you there. The idea that the UK is going to prescribe these to further sort of legitimize them, in the eyes of smokers, while the United States is about to swear in our new FDA Commissioner, Robert Califf, who is a prohibitionist. How do they justify this? I don't understand how this happens.
Don't forget. So first of all, the UK has always had a pathway to approve an e-cigarette as a medicine, safe and effective through the regulatory process there.
Sure.
I think they just clarified what the process would be. And if anything, they made it harder, by the way. So it hasn't been reported correctly.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the FDA just authorized, 3, but actually basically one e-cigarette product.
Yeah.
They choosing one that literally nobody uses.
I couldn't even find it.
No,
Charles.
I went into my C-store and I asked for it.
I went on a tour of C-stores in LA, and I had to have the guy at one that I normally go to special order it for me. He said, I think I can get the Vuse Solo. I said, could you please? Oh yeah, I put it up on my shelf as like a display item. I vaped through the cartomizer and I put it up on my shelf. It says first FDA approved vape. It's like a historic occasion. At least in my eyes,
But I have to tell you, in my local convenience store, I am not making this up. It was literally, he had to search all over the store for it, and it was literally in a back corner covered with dust.
Yeah.
And I said, well, do you have the pods? Do you have the refills for it? Yes. Yeah, they had those too, and way past the expiry date. They've just been sitting there forever. Nobody buys that. And maybe I think I've said this before, but I think FDA was just kind of sending up a trial balloon, just see how much people would scream if they authorized that. Because if you actually look at the numbers, it not only do no adults use it, but really no teens use it. It's by my back of the envelope calculations, far less, maybe like 1 in 5,000 teens have ever seen one. I mean, this is based on the latest National Youth Tobacco Survey data, which has data on teen use of Vuse products, but 95% of those, according to the Truth Initiative, are not the Solo. It's the Alto.
An Alto is actually pretty vapeable. I have an Alto on my desk. Have you tried to vape the Vuse Solo?
No, I didn't buy it.
Oh,
because it looked like a piece of, pardon my French, but it looked like a piece of shit.
Oh, you can curse here. It's encouraged. It's encouraged here.
All right.
I'll tell you, as a longtime vapor, and having used hundreds of pods and little cartomizers, the Vuse Solo is actively bad. It's if I was a smoker and I tried the Vuse Solo, I would go straight back to cigarettes. It is wholly unsatisfying. Tastes bad, vapes bad.
But it's hard. It's hard for you and me who have been in this field for a few years, right, and have been vaping. In my case, for nearly 8 years.
Yeah.
And maybe longer for you.
I'm coming up on 13 years this January.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to remember what it was like to make that initial transition, I have to say. So who knows? And we always say every smoker is different.
Yeah.
So the key thing has got to be the more options, the better.
Yes.
The more safer options that smokers have, the better. And I don't care how smokers quit.
Mm-mm.
Right? I mean, I don't care what device it is. I don't care if it's a smokeless tobacco, like a snus product, or a nicotine pouch, or even a heated tobacco product. I've tried those too. It's okay. Each one will be potentially helpful for some people.
Yes. And there is, I personally do remember my switch moments very, very vividly in that, because in 2009, this was a complete mystery. I didn't know what liquids were. I didn't know anything. I bought a little ECIG and I thought, well, this is the last thing I'll ever need. It comes with 2 cartridges. I'm set, And so I used it and it's pretty good. And then I ran out. And so I went, oh, damn. Okay, I'll have some cigarettes. Let's order a new one. Pay too much money. Do this. Got a flavor I don't like. Back to cigarettes. There's a component of it where back in the day, and even still a little bit, you had to earn it. Like, you had to really want it to stick, and you had to really want it to work, because I settled for bad flavors on underperforming batteries with cruddy cartomizers, but it worked. And it's a miracle that anybody quit back in 2009, but enough people did to kind of start this whole movement forward, and consumers innovating this forward to make a better product for ourselves, I think was a huge component to it. And so every smoker's different, and you're right that variety is what's going to help make vaping successful.
So that's a true story that the modern merchants of doubt are trying to paper over.
Yeah.
Which is that this was originally a consumer-led movement, and that it was real ex-smokers and to some extent for some time dual users. That you were a dual user for some time, as was I.
Yep.
Like I was a dual user for longer than most people, actually, because I've done surveys of our community. Quite a lot of people quit by accident, as many as 40%. But a lot of people quit within a month. But a lot of people are, I would say a minority, remain a dual user for a year or more.
Yes.
And that was me. But basically, I wasn't really in a big hurry, and I had, I was down to 1 or 2 cigarettes a day, and I had the habit of having a cigarette when I walked to the subway, or when I was in Washington D.C., walked to the metro.
Yeah, the ritual.
It's the ritual that you miss. And so then finally, kind of the shift just happened. But just the fact that some people quit right away and some people take a long time to do it, and are dual users, so they're in the transition phase, is another example of every smoker's different.
Yeah.
But I would say today, dual use is literally caused by the misinformation. Extended dual use is caused by the fact that many smokers believe that these devices are just as harmful as cigarettes. So if that's what you believe, why would you switch? Right? So we've convinced as many as 60% of smokers that e-cigarettes are just as harmful, if not more harmful, than cigarettes. So yeah, of course you get dual use, and then of course those merchants of doubt come in and say, oh look, everybody who picks up an e-cigarette becomes a dual user, and that's even more dangerous.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Even though with any other like NRTs, they, for lack of a better term, encourage dual use.
Yeah, they do.
But
right.
but not with vaping. Vaping, you either have to try it once and switch immediately, or give up. But with NRTs, you should definitely dual use for as long as it takes you to transition away from cigarettes.
Yeah. We need to ask more often, why doesn't nicotine gum come in tobacco flavor?
Yes. Yeah, why doesn't nicotine gum come in a tobacco flavor? Why not?
Because no one would buy it.
No one would buy it. When you switched, did you seek out a tobacco flavor initially?
I did, and that's very common. We know this from a lot of surveys. That smokers unfamiliar with trying e-cigarettes. And for me, by the way, it took a long time, in large part because I just didn't have the right device. So that's the other thing. So the variety of devices is actually a positive, because every smoker is different.
Yep.
But I started out with tobacco flavor like a lot of people do. And I've for my own palate, I don't like really sweet flavors.
Okay.
A lot of adults do.
Yeah.
So for me, finding a flavor that I like is like finding something that's almost no flavor.
Sure.
I know that sounds boring.
Look, every vapor's different.
There we go.
That's not
right.
Boring.
But I'm right for my body. I'm going to listen to my body and what it wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of was the same way when I started vaping. I saw different flavors and thought, strawberry? I'm a cigarette smoker. Like, I'm a menthol cigarette smoker. I need tobacco, menthol, tobacco something. And after trialing it, bad flavor after bad flavor, and then I tried clove flavor and like a cigar flavor, and I finally caved and tried a root beer flavor and went, oh, root beer. And that's the flavor that switched me completely.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love root beer.
Yeah, I love root beer. It was just it was like I ordered root beer and green apple, just like this will be interesting. And then those flavors actually stuck, and I went, oh, okay, I guess I vape root beer now. Like, it felt weird at that time. I could have been the only vapor in my small town of Carson City, Nevada at that time, regularly vaping like a root beer vape.
Yeah.
It just was, just was weird. Just was weird. Just felt weird. But I think you quickly move to flavors. And like you said, everybody's different. And there's vapors I've met that found one flavor early on and just, that's it. One flavor forever.
And others that like to mix it up and change from one day to the next. So we're taking away all those options now.
We're not. FDA is, It's not us, Charles. It's not me and you. It's
great,
FDA.
The great and good are removing those options. I would guess something close to half of all the vape shops in the United States have shut down now.
I'm not surprised by that.
And that's literally just a guess, but with a little bit of data behind it. And would love to know what that number actually is. But by the surveys I've done, each of those vape shops was helping somewhere between 5 and 10 smokers quit every month. So when you go from 10,000 vape shops down to 5,000, you're going to have fewer people quitting smoking.
Yeah.
And vape shops create communities of ex-smokers helping other smokers quit.
Yep.
It's kind of like many people have said, kind of like an AA, Alcoholics Anonymous sort of thing going on there,
yes.
But without a lot of the stigma. And that's a damn shame.
Yeah.
Right. But it was COVID killed a lot of them. But
and local taxes, local regulations, and flavor bans, and and it doesn't help vape shops when FDA is actively telling people, oh, there's heavy metals in this, and once that, we talk about merchants of doubt, but once that gets out there into the ether, it's really hard to get that to go away, and people will still see it and cling to it. And once you create that doubt, man. It's hard to course correct, and I don't know that I can ever forgive our Department of Health and Human Services for creating that doubt.
And now our regulator, the Food and Drug Administration, is apparently moving to dramatically restrict the choices of products that are left. Also, we've banned online sales and mail shipments, so we're restricting access. For Americans, either smokers or ex-smokers in rural areas, that's a real killer, actually. And if all we're going to get is shitty vape products made by big tobacco companies in shitty tobacco flavor from the FDA, authorized by the FDA, this is really it's big time bad. And we've already seen the smoking rate in the United States, or I should say cigarette sales, going up increasing for the first time in 20 years. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. Who would have thought that all of these NGOs and public health orgs suddenly trashing vaping for years on end, who thought that would lead to a rise in cigarette sales?
Well, so that's the thing. Every economist on earth sees product substitution in the same way that digital cameras replaced film cameras, in the same way that electric cars are replacing internal combustion engine cars. And this has played out in the history of technology for centuries, actually.
Yeah.
And so product substitution, right? It's a basic concept. I have to tell you, by the way, almost nobody in the field of public health ever took economics in college.
Okay.
And I know this because that's the field I come from, and that's been my community for 30 years. So these ideas like supply and demand and product substitution and declining marginal returns, and it doesn't make any sense to them. And profit is evil, et cetera, et cetera.
Always.
And so we've got two kind of competing ideas. You have the gateway theory, which is vaping as a gateway to smoking. And then you have the product substitution concept, which I would say is not a theory. It's a confirmed fact. We can talk about Michael Pesco.
Yeah, definitely.
There.
Yeah,
but they can't both be true.
Correct.
It's either one or the other. I think I know where the evidence lies.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's one of those things that just seems so plain as day to me. Of course these are product substitutions. How does everybody not see that? Of course these are product substitutions. And you brought up Michael Pesco, and he wrote that great piece. I don't know if it actually went to Congress. We spent a whole stream tweeting it at Congress, going over the economic implications of what the nicotine tax and the Build Back Better plan would actually do for cigarette sales in the United States. Really great piece. And now, here's some news. Michael Pesco has been appointed to the Health Canada Scientific Advisory Board for vaping products. Crazy. He will serve here. I have here on Twitter. It says he will serve a 3-year term to advise the Canadian government on e-cigarette policy. I can only see this as a good thing. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high for Canada, but I feel like this can only be a positive thing. What's your take on that, Charles?
Well, I think he's brilliant.
Yes, brilliant.
The letter that I believe he sent to a large number of members of Congress.
Yes,
and I'm glad that you also, duplicated that and did that as well. And maybe if you could share that with the people watching, if you can find it.
Yeah, I can track it down.
A lot of it is based on his own peer-reviewed publications and research, so economic research, which makes it, there is absolutely no question these are product substitutes. But his calculation, for those who haven't seen it, is that the dramatic increase in safer nicotine vape product taxes that would be included in this new bill that's being considered in Congress, that would cause increase the number of teens who are smoking by about 500,000 teens, and increase the number of adults who are smoking by 2.5 million adults. Now that's not good for public health.
No.
Full stop.
Yeah, full stop. Full stop. And it seems like, and this is something I see you kind of hamper on Twitter, is that there has never been, I don't think, any sort of like impact study done on what this will actually, how many actual youths will this prevent from vaping versus how many adult smokers will this actually prevent from switching. I feel like these things aren't discussed. They're not even considered. What's
right.
Like,
so
nicotine tax.
When you embark on a new construction project, like building a bridge or a building or a new
freeway overpass,
a new manufacturing plant, you are required to do an environmental impact assessment.
Right. Yes.
We don't have a requirement for legislation like this to do a health impact assessment. But I'm often saying this, that we actually ought to. And we ought to have a careful health impact assessment of any proposed flavor ban or taxes on alternative nicotine products to find out how many fewer teens will actually use that product if this policy is passed. How many teens will switch to smoking? How many adults who are using the product will just relapse to smoking? And how many fewer smokers will quit? And how many bootleg products will arise in the market? And on and on and on. If you don't consider all of the potential outcomes, then you can end up with really bad policies.
Yeah, or like we ended up with in San Francisco. And I don't know how other states, I want to throw this out there right now. There's a flavor ban in Denver, Colorado right now. I'll have a link in the description. Maybe Addy Tooney, my main man, Addy Tooney can get that link in the chat as well. But this flavor ban is continuing to pass through Denver, and the way that it's going to end now, if we can end it, is with a veto. It's gotten to the veto point, is our last sort of Hail Mary against this flavor ban, but it boggles my mind that Denver wants to do this despite what happens in San Francisco. I mean, you have clear data.
In a state that's legalized cannabis.
Yes.
I would like to know, are flavored THC vaping products legal in Colorado?
Oh,
I think they are.
They probably are. I don't even know if they know that flavored THC products exist yet.
They do. And flavored THC gummy bears and edibles and.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. Flavored THC. Yeah, gummies, edibles. I didn't even think about that, but yes.
There's no rationality to this. That's the thing. I mean, teens are 3 times more likely to binge drink than they are to vape nicotine frequently.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks about that. And okay, advertising of alcohol is legal. It comes in thousands of flavors. There are more teens drinking flavored alcohol, 12%, than there are vaping flavored e-cigarettes, which is 9%. There's no rationality to this.
No, there's no rationality to it all, especially when you consider that alcohol isn't, plus we get this, look at that, Berry Punch, Jack Daniels. This is fine.
Those are child-friendly flavors.
These are child-friendly flavors and child-friendly colors, and the only stopgap between child consumption and this product is a 21 and over verification. You have a little card that proves you can buy this. That's it. And that's what works for this product, but for vaping, age checks apparently are not quite enough.
I mean, don't forget, for Americans, anybody who watches the Super Bowl knows full well alcohol advertising is legal on television.
On television. And it seems
Children see that.
It seems like the warnings about alcohol over the years have just become quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. I remember old Captain Morgan commercials that used to say, drink responsibly. You know, they'd say it at the end of every commercial, please drink responsibly. And then it's like, please drink responsibly. Please. And then at the end, it's drink. Just drink. There's no more warnings, Just fell off.
Hey, my friend, can I say something about INNCO?
You can. In fact, that's something I wanted to talk to you about is INNCO. Let's talk about INNCO. Nothing about us without us. I want to demystify INNCO a little bit because INNCO's been around. I see INNCO in the chat. I see INNCO on the Twitter Spaces. How would you describe INNCO to someone who's not familiar with it at all?
Well, it's a nonprofit organization of ex-smokers like me who use safer forms of nicotine in order to avoid toxic forms of nicotine. So we have a kind of lived experience. You could call us consumers, but we're really just people. And we support the rights of what are now 98 million people around the world who are using safer nicotine. So we think about this. We've got 1.3 billion people on Earth who are using nicotine.
Wait, what was that number again?
1.3 billion. With a B.
With a B, like Carl Sagan. All right.
Billions and billions. And so that's a lot of people. So about 1.1 billion are smoking, death sticks, toxic, deadly cigarettes. But there are a lot of other tobacco products that may or may not be as harmful, but they're still harmful. And the point is, from our perspective, getting people to shift over to safer forms of nicotine would save lives. I think any rational being should be able to see that. So INNCO is a nonprofit organization. We have an umbrella secretariat, which I'm a member of that, and a team of very dedicated and very wonderful people on the secretariat, just kind of collecting the information, trying to get that out to our member organizations, and trying to share that with the public. Because the thing we've learned from people in the drug harm reduction space is there's never going to be a magic bullet here. We actually just need to constantly present the living face of people who've quit smoking, and I'm feeling better. I'm healthier. My lungs are more clear. I have far fewer lung infections. I don't cough as much. All of us have these experiences that totally contradict what's being said by the modern merchants of doubt. INNCO has 37 member organizations around the world, member organizations and affiliates. And so we're growing fastest in Latin America and Africa. We're working on the Middle East, but we have a lot of members in Europe, obviously members in North America. Excuse me, I'm all choked up about this.
Yeah, I can tell it's very important to you.
The U.S. Member of INNCO, for those who are watching in the United States, is called CASA.
Yeah.
And anybody who in the United States isn't a member of CASA, I would urge you to join. It's just a great source of information. But there are organizations like that in 36 other countries, each one different, each one trying to grapple with the local laws and regulations and bans and prohibitions that may or may not be there. And so we're all about just trying to make sure that smokers have every option to quit, and not die, right?
Yes, yeah.
And it just really shouldn't be such a struggle.
It shouldn't be. And harm reduction, it's just been a buzzword of like the last 2 years, and I'm here for it. I love harm reduction. I love it. And it's not that radical of a concept, you know? The idea that we want things to be safer and have safer ways of doing things has been part of society and civilizations for hundreds of years. There's a reason why we have airbags in car. We don't say stop driving. We say drive safer. Make sure you have seatbelt, airbags. We know about safer, but for some reason, in this context, it just scrambles people's brains or something, and they don't understand switching versus quitting, but switching is quitting.
So I remember looking at this data years ago on seatbelts, and somebody should look it up and probably will and correct me. But if my memory serves me right, over a 10-year period, the data from the United States National Traffic Safety Board, whatever it's called, showed that seatbelts had saved about 100,000 lives over a 10-year period.
Wow. I mean, that's impressive.
Right. But nicotine vape products in the United States have helped well over 4.3 million smokers quit.
Yes. That is much more impressive.
Smoking kills half of all users. So that's over 2 million, potentially over 2 million lives saved. And that's just in one country. So it's not even comparable to seatbelts.
Yeah.
Condoms are another consumer product. I mean, seatbelts are sort of kind of a consumer product. Condoms are a consumer product that prevents the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases and unwanted pregnancies.
Absolutely.
I worked in public health for 30 years and very much often a part of the work I was doing or the organizations I was working for were promoting condom use. Mm-hmm. But when I talked about that, nobody ever accused me of working for Big Condom.
You didn't get called a shill?
No, but I'm constantly accused of working for Big Tobacco now.
Oh yes,
because I want smokers to switch to safer nicotine alternatives. It's kind of cuckoo. And the other thing is you can think about bicycle helmets and motorcycle helmets. These are consumer products that are harm reduction products that do save lives and prevent injury and death. And nobody really thinks it through.
Yeah, they allow you to continue a risky behavior with much less potential harm involved.
Yeah, it's much safer to leave your bicycle in the garage and not go out.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I agree. It's much safer to just stay in your house and not put on shoes to walk on the hot pavement.
There we go. So getting back to INNCO.
INNCO, yes, INNCO.
My one-track mind. We're all just back from London. The ninth Conference of Parties of the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control was held starting on the 8th of November. And we held a rally, we held a conference, we did a live streaming event, and then I think we may be the first to have actively protested physically in front of a Bloomberg owned building. We did that in front of Bloomberg headquarters in the city of London.
In the city of London. How was that? You feel like that was successful? You feel like you reached some people or made your voices heard?
According to the security guards I talked to, it caused a lot of people in Bloomberg corporate headquarters in the United States to be awakened around 3 o'clock in the morning. So at least we accomplished that. We also delivered an award to Michael Bloomberg, and they assured me that it would be put on his desk. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but this was a black plaque award for the most misinformation. We have a similar award for another organization, which I won't mention. We also issued an award to the Safer Nicotine Wiki team.
Oh, cool.
At that time. And Richard Pruin, who's a member of that team, was actually there with us in London. And we were able to give that to him personally. And there were nearly some tears shed around this. It was quite moving. They've made a great contribution. I would recommend anybody go to the Safer Nicotine Wiki website, and you'll find that it's searchable, and you can look up and you can find all kinds of evidence, from peer-reviewed studies to news articles, and that's just a growing resource. So I do want to highlight this, and it's not a dead body. It's a
Was that
small
an egg bag? Are you doing a magic trick?
It's not a dead cat. It has a thing in it, and inside here. INNCO is very, very happy. It's going to have a lot of reflection to deliver this award. Well, you can't quite see it.
Oh, I saw my name on there. What is that, Charles
Deliver
Gardner?
this award to Nicholas, in parentheses, GrimmGreen, as a safer nicotine champion.
Oh,
this is a unanimous vote by all of those 37 member organizations around the world.
Wow. I mean, wow. I don't even know what to say. That's incredible. I feel completely honored, completely honored. I'm just, I don't know. Do I have to do an acceptance speech? Look, ultimately, I've seen what these products can do for people firsthand. I've seen what they've done for me. I've seen what they've done for my family members, and I can't not be a cheerleader for vaping. This is it. This is the hill I'm going to die on. I will defend vaping into the ground. And I feel honored to even just be part of this.
This can also be used as a blunt weapon.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Good. Home defense.
So I wish people actually here with a background. Here we go. You can see it a little better if I get it in. There we go. That
is very cool. That is very cool.
So congratulations.
Well,
we will be giving out other awards. Obviously, I'm going to mail this to you.
Sure. I mean, I appreciate
Unless you can fly me out to California.
Look, stranger things have happened. Do you want to come in, be an in-studio guest? Look, we can make this happen. I think that's very cool, and I'm very honored, and it's very nice, but it's certainly not why I don't, why I would do this.
But we want to honor people every year who are real champions in this space. And there are, for everyone we're honoring this year, there are a dozen others. Not to diminish you, but there are a dozen others that also deserve that honor. But there's only 1 year at a time, but this is it. And we have, as I said, some other awards. But we have black awards for people who are really bad.
Okay, good.
And then you get this clear, beautiful, clear thing for people who are good, and you're good. So
I'm good. Okay,
you're good with us.
I'm glad I'm on the right side with INNCO. I would be not doing my job very well if I got the Black Bad Award from INNCO. I feel.
No. If you were doing a bad job, we would take you down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, take me protesting outside of my house.
Yeah. Right. So speaking of protesting, I do think we need to think about, as activists, as people who use safer nicotine, when are the appropriate times to demonstrate and to do confrontational things, but at the same time to think very carefully about that, because when could those kind of things backfire? So I would recommend, for example, against burning down some famous public building.
Right. No, destruction, sure. Violence, no.
No, absolutely. But there may be times where it's appropriate to chain yourself to the fence, or something along those lines, because people with other causes do that.
Yes.
And to some extent, we need to learn from where those kind of activities have worked. So with the LGBTQ community, there's a lot we can learn there.
Yes.
In wherever it was in the 1990s, they dropped a giant condom on the home of Senator Jesse Helms.
Right? Did they really?
Look it up. That was in the news. It's a great photograph. It caused everybody to laugh, and it raised some eyebrows, and that one did not backfire, but other things can. So we need to be very careful about this. But there are bad actors in this area, and they need to be called out. So we need to think about that.
So many.
So we have
so many bad actors.
INNCO has a very strong focus on evidence. Everything we say and do, we try to make sure that it's backed up by peer-reviewed evidence or government surveys. We stick to that, no matter how far out there the modern merchants of doubt are with their exaggerations and lies by omission of context and false claims of causation from associations and so on.
Questionable math going on in there too.
Yes. I'm sorry. What was that?
I said some questionable math there from CDC as well.
Oh, yeah. So just misleading math. But at the same time, there are lives at stake here, and so we need to start thinking about where we hold not just the next rally, but maybe something else.
Yeah. Look, I'm here for it.
Not involving violence.
No. What about, can we buy cartons of cigarettes and dump them on the FDA's front steps or something? I don't know if that would have a big impact. What did they? Wasn't there a group that did the body bags? Wasn't that the AIDS in the 80s, where they had body bags up and down the streets of New York City, talking about these are all of the AIDS victims that are being death by misinformation and disinformation?
So in the United States, that organization primarily, what was called, it still exists, ACT UP, was extremely effective. But it wasn't just these kind of demonstrations that, they had die-ins, where you could have a flash mob where just suddenly everybody lays down and is dead for 20 minutes or something and gets photographed, and you have maybe some journalists there and so on. They had demonstrations on the campus of the National Institutes of Health, and they erected fake tombstones, and they had, this is interesting, you can look at the photographs, but they had fog machines, so producing fake smoke.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Long before vaping. And they held a sit-in in Tony Fauci's office.
Yeah.
Got his attention. And he listened to them. Now, you can't do that anymore because post September 11th, security is so tight around the NIH, you can't get in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, ACT UP enlisted dozens and dozens of nationally renowned artists, and including also graffiti artists, and they enlisted them. They had art shows. So think of the AIDS quilt in Washington D.C. All of those things were effective tactics. So it's really like thinking out. I hate this expression, but thinking outside the box.
Hey,
if we just start throwing ashtrays at people, it's not going to work.
Right, right. So one thing I was thinking about is when we talk about like protests or activism or trying to get people's attention, I think of I lived in Carson City, Nevada for a very, very long time, and there was always this one woman standing on the corner right by the Safeway who had a big sign that had like a casket on it, and it said, "Don't drink and drive." And it had some ribbons on it, and she was out there every day. Don't drink and drive all day long. Don't drink and drive. You know, there was like stories about who this woman is and why is she out there and why is she telling people not to drink and drive. And it's something you see every day, this woman standing there. It means something to her. Don't drink and drive. Well, it turns out she came into my Starbucks store one day, and I finally got to meet her. It turns out that her daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and ever since then, she's just been a non, don't drink and drive sort of activist, and that's what she does. She's like, I just stand out there every day, and I want everybody to know that's driving to not to drink and drive. And I thought, that was really impactful. Like, it impacted me. I saw it every day. It probably impacted every driver who drove past her. I don't see why I can't go stand on an overpass with a sign that says vaping saves adult lives and just stand there every day over the 101 freeway in Los Angeles and just stand there every day. Like, I feel like that could be actually an effective thing. And then that makes me think, well, we can do this all over the country. It doesn't take a huge group of us. It takes one of us at a time.
So in our community of ex-smokers who use safer nicotine, probably 3 out of 4 of us have lost a loved one to smoking.
Yeah, grandfather here.
Right? My father. So we have not only our own lives, but the lives of our family members at stake here. And, just think of, if you just pick any 1,000 people at random, in a room and ask them how many of you have lost a loved one to smoking. That's actually the way to start this conversation.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to start this conversation is to ground it in the reality of how many people are actually dying from the toxic forms of tobacco.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
right?
and I think
and there's something to protest.
I really like that because it's something I think, like you said, I think everybody can identify with that. If it's not a direct family member, it's someone in your family who has died from smoking, tobacco-related death and disease. And, the idea that you wouldn't want them to have had a safer product and maybe they could have lived another 5-10 years. That's something that you wouldn't want for them because that's what we want for us. I think that's a really good way. I like that. I'm writing this down.
All right, I'll be at the overpass with you.
Yeah, look, I think this is a great idea. Even if there was like 2 or 3 people up there every day with just a sign that says vaping saves adult lives, every day on the 101 freeway. There's a little overpass. You could just stand there. I don't know about millions, tens of thousands of people would see that every single day on their commute into the basin and their commute out of the basin. They'd see it every single day, every single day. And I think I think that could be incredibly effective. It might even be more effective than me going on Twitter and making a tweet.
Yeah, so much of, I hate to say this, but so much of what we do on social media, and I do, of course, too much.
No, not too much.
It's just talking to people in our echo chamber.
Yeah.
So the thing is to think about how to get outside of the echo chamber, and the message from our colleagues and brothers and sisters in the drug harm reduction space is you need to get the voices of real people into the minds of, most Americans don't smoke and they don't vape, so they don't have a frame of reference for this. And I think the other way looking forward here is to begin to talk about the beneficial sides of nicotine. Nicotine. Every ballerina for the past 150 years has known that smoking cigarettes helps to keep the weight off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So nicotine, but there are scientific studies showing it's beneficial for weight control. Okay, we have an epidemic of obesity in this country.
Yes, we do.
A real epidemic.
Yeah.
Right. Although epidemics are technically,
it has to be an infectious disease, I think. Yeah.
But nicotine's a mild stimulant. It increases focus and attention and memory, and it doesn't intoxicate. But it is clearly beneficial for preventing Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. There's just absolutely no question about that. It's neuroprotective. Mm-hmm. Probably beneficial for people to prevent or to reduce or delay the symptoms of aging dementias like Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And then the big one is people living with neurodiversity issues like ADHD, autism, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, Tourette's syndrome, and I could go on and on, all of whom smoke at much higher rates than the general population, mm-hmm. because they're self-medicating with nicotine because it helps them.
Yeah.
Right? Many of nicotine's effects are actually quite similar to Ritalin, which is one of the medicines for ADHD, but it just doesn't have, as long as you're not smoking, that smoking has a bad side effect. Like real bad. Carcinogens. Yeah, there's that, cancer and so on. But if it's coming from a safer nicotine alternative product, it could be a nicotine patch. I mean, again, I don't care. Or nicotine gum. These are harm reduction products.
Yep.
They have side effects too.
Sure.
Right? So, but that can be beneficial for adults living with ADHD, or autism. And I think getting people in that community active and reaching out to the patients' advocacy groups in that community, which they don't have a clue, by the way. They're all suffering under the same myths and misconceptions that the general public is. They don't even know. I've talked to them. They don't even know that the people they're defending are smoking at such high rates. So they don't have a policy on smoking. They don't have a policy on safer nicotine. I think it's a bit like the medical marijuana story, right? So smokers don't want to be medicalized, and vapors and snus users don't want to be medicalized, but there are health benefits, and there's absolutely no question about this. It's clear in studies looking at nicotine patches, and I'm talking dozens of studies, peer-reviewed studies, but it's sort of like it's forbidden, it's verboten to talk about health benefits, because the instant you do, you're accused of being a shill for big tobacco.
Yeah, you are. You're a shill. And that's one of the things that makes the Depression Stick by the Truth Initiative that much more egregious in my eyes. That drove me crazier than a lot of other anti-vaping campaigns that I had seen. That one kind of sent me over the edge.
It's the most offensive thing I have seen in a long time.
I can't. How did you react to that? How have you been dealing with the Truth Initiative and the depression stick? Has the Truth Initiative blocked you yet? Or are you blocked on? You're not blocked?
No, they're probably muted. But
oh, yeah.
But I have talked to a lot. So lots of people who smoke are adults living with mental health issues. So no surprise, lots of people who shift over to safer nicotine alternatives and become advocates are the same people. So I have been talking to a lot of people like, all praise, especially to Skip Murray, who very courageously wrote a letter to the Truth Initiative. And if anyone has not seen her video, reading the letter, it's very moving, and I would strongly recommend it. It is heartfelt.
Yes.
It is carefully crafted and very diplomatic. She's a big one for pointing out that a lot of us in this space are a little too aggressive in social media, and because that doesn't really win the arguments.
No.
So she did a lovely job, and I want to congratulate everyone in this space who a lot of people are like, it's sort of, they're coming out like, oh, I've been diagnosed with ADHD or with autism or I have suicidal thoughts. I mean, thank God we have a community of people here who are supportive and can support that and can recognize that nicotine is one of the things that's helping somebody not commit suicide.
Absolutely.
And so these depression sticks are that offensive.
Yeah. Hyper offensive. Just crazy offensive. But it won awards, didn't it? That ad campaign won some awards, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it wasn't that one, but...
We will give them a black award for that. Yeah. I shouldn't say black. The doggy award or whatever it is.
The Black Lung Award.
Black is not bad, but that was absolutely atrocious, and in particular, given that they call themselves the Truth Initiative, and there are dozens and dozens of studies showing that nicotine patches help adults who are suffering from chronic depression. There's no question about that.
And to play devil's advocate just a little bit, there is a part of me that, sure, if I was a seventh grader in 2020 or 2021 dealing with normal seventh grade, I did not enjoy seventh grade, but I think I would have enjoyed seventh grade less if there was like social media involved, Instagram and Facebook involved. Thank God I didn't have those when I was young, but I could see some high nicotine riling up some kids. I don't think we could make the blanket statement like that. I think nicotine could rile up some kids or could exacerbate the anxiety that they're already feeling because the climate's collapsing, the economy's collapsing. There's all these endless wars and social media and the pressures of being a kid and not being in such an uncertain future. I think there is some relevance to it, but it rubs me too much the wrong way. It's too offensive. It's too offensive to everybody else.
So nicotine in the short term reduces anxiety and stress, and to some extent depression. It's all mild. It's not like this sledgehammer of a drug. It's just a very mild effect. But I do think we need to point out that teen vaping has dropped 62% over the past 2 years.
Yes.
And teen depression has doubled over the past year and a half. So, if we were to use the same correlation as causation logic that the modern merchants of doubt are using, like the Truth Initiative, we would say, well, clearly not vaping causes depression, because not vaping led to an increase in depression. That's the logic that they.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
They follow. No.
Yeah.
No.
So,
But,
I mean,
but here we are.
what I was thinking more along the lines of like anxiety, for youths is me personally, and this is only my personal life experience, is when I was vaping a lot of 50 milligram salt nicotine, a lot of high nicotine stuff, and you lost it, or you couldn't find it, or you had that panic moment where you're like, oh God, where's my vape? That level of anxiety is something I could see, especially if a youth isn't used to a dependency like that. And they were a smoker, or now they switched to vaping and now they can't find their vape. And that's like giving them anxiety. And I think taking away the vape is going to give youths more anxiety. At least for the youths that were self-medicating with nicotine, and you take it away, will cause anxiety.
So let's not forget that a lot of young people, youths, teens, are already diagnosed with ADHD or autism, right? And the data that I've seen show that about 10% of U.S. high school kids are on prescription ADHD medications already, right? And so they're on Ritalin or whatever, and or on anti-anxiety medications. So they're on their meds, and a lot of those medications have a lot of side effects. So God knows what we're doing to them, and it very, very definitely does, alter developing brains. I think we obviously need to say teens should not vape. They should not vape nicotine or THC or anything else, fentanyl.
Sure.
And they shouldn't smoke, and they should not drink, and they should not use cannabis, and they should not use illicit drugs. But hey, were you in high school? I mean, I was.
I was in high school. Oh yeah.
And we do need to think about what the Truth Initiative is doing here with its school-based programs. Its school-based anti-vaping programs. I believe they're repeating all of the same mistakes of the 1990s DARE program, which was a colossal failure, which was ultimately repudiated by the Surgeon General of the United States because he declared that it was not effective at all. But this was after tens of millions of dollars had been spent by the U.S. federal government to pay for this program that went into schools, that got police officers to go in and basically tell all of the teens in high school who were not using drugs what all of their drug options were.
Yep.
and what to avoid. And it increased curiosity among those who didn't use drugs, and it increased teen drug use, according to numerous peer-reviewed studies. I think we're repeating exactly the same mistake. Because the latest data from the National Youth Tobacco Survey show that 9 out of 10 kids in high school don't vape at all. So whatever you're doing to educate them about the dangers of vaping in high school today, 9 out of 10 of the kids aren't using these products. And if anything, you're probably just increasing the curiosity of some of them. How's that going to turn out?
Yeah, well, which we know from the National Youth Tobacco Survey data that curiosity is the number one reason given.
Exactly.
For even initiating with vaping.
So, there are a lot of things wrong. It's a whole nother discussion about how our public health authorities are actually communicating the facts to the public, or miscommunicating or misleading. But maybe save that for another conversation.
Yeah. Well, my only hope really is that just because of the technological information age that we live in, things seem to progress a little bit more rapidly. So we had DARE in the 90s, and then it took however X amount of 20 plus years for us to realize, well, that probably wasn't that good of an idea to begin with because it did X, Y, and Z. I think we'll be able to see the ramifications of what the Truth Initiative is doing much sooner, and maybe be able to course correct before the damage gets real bad.
So the problem here is like any foundation, they're an unaccountable entity. They have
like
a
Bloomberg
$1 billion endowment, and under U.S. tax laws, to maintain their tax-exempt status, they need to spend 5% of that every year. So what foundations do is they invest on the stock market, so they hope to earn at least 5% every year. So they can at least keep the corpus alive, and then a foundation is essentially immortal. So Mike Bloomberg is turning 80 on February 14th of next year. He won't be around forever, but his foundation will. And the Truth Initiative and the Bloomberg philanthropies, between them, are spending about $200 million a year in this space. And so you can't course correct when the people leading a foundation like the Truth Initiative have no public health background at all, and they won't listen. 15 past presidents of the Society for Research on Nicotine and Tobacco, some of the world's top experts in the field of tobacco control, all of them veterans of a decades-long war against the tobacco industry, publish a piece, and the Truth Initiative just ignores it. Because it doesn't fit their worldview.
Yeah.
They do have some kind of equivocal language about harm reduction. They have some weird kind of two-faced statements. I can't parse that out.
Yeah. It's weird what they shout, and it's weird what they whisper. You know, they whisper the things that we would like to hear, and they shout depression stick at people, you know, and there's just no accountability there.
So, and between them and the 100,
accountable.
Yeah, no, I mean, foundations are not accountable, and that's a thing. And so there is a lot of discussion. So like Mark Gunther, a journalist, spent his whole career kind of investigating that field of philanthropy, writing for the Chronicle of Philanthropy, for example. He's a newcomer to the tobacco harm reduction field, and has been writing some incredibly good things. I mean, we do need to get more people like Mark from outside of our echo chamber.
Yeah. His piece was one of the I read it so many times, Charles, so many times. Just read it top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. It was firing on all cylinders, and I loved it. And I thought, oh, this is going to make some big waves. Like, this is definitely going to get some mainstream. And before I could even get the sentence out of my mouth, it was like, nope, it didn't. Nobody picked up on it. Nobody's talking about this huge piece being really critical of Mike Bloomberg, and, you know, going back to what you were talking about earlier with having, you know, we feel like they should say we're funded by Bloomberg philanthropies and Mike Bloomberg is a known anti-vapor. You know, I do think that's important, but I don't know, because of the way that the public feels about vaping, if a journalist said that, you know, whatever, this was funded by Mike Bloomberg, who is a known anti-vapor, I think that would be a good thing. I think the public would go, oh, good, because they view anti-vaping as a good thing.
Right. Whereas to us, this is like funded by an American billionaire who's an anti-vax.
Right. Right.
Given, I mean, depending on how you feel about vaccines.
Sure.
And it brings us back to there is not going to be a magic bullet to fix this.
Yeah.
It's going to take people like you, who is a green champion, as it says here on your plaque.
Officially, and hundreds and thousands of others like us. We're just two people. INNCO, if we actually count up the numbers of with the members of each of our member organizations, we're actually dealing with potentially hundreds of thousands of people.
what we need to do is get more people active in the community and less passive.
Yeah.
And people tend to get active when they discover that their rights are being taken away from them.
Outrage will radicalize people, I think, as we've seen. But
Right.
I think EVALI really radicalized a lot of vapors into action and to also paying attention to what was going on. And we lost a lot of that steam, and it takes, I feel like it takes a big outrageous thing for all of us to kind of spring into action. It's hard being a vape defender, Yeah,
I do want to announce here that the Secretariat of INNCO has had a discussion around this. I think it's a very good idea. It comes originally from one of my colleagues there, and Jeff, and we want to hold a webinar on advocacy burnout.
I could be a keynote speaker at that webinar, Charles. Keynote speaker. I'm just kidding.
All right,
but it is a real thing.
I'll put you down for that.
No.
No, it is a real thing. There's a lot of talk about it in the community. All of us, and a lot of you have been doing this for a lot longer than I have. I've just come in, 3-4 years ago from a completely different field that was a hell of a lot less frustrating than this one is. And there were frustrations there. There were conflicts of opinion. There were 20 years ago. There was a lot of contention around whether we should work with the big pharma companies to develop new drugs and vaccines for HIV, TB, and malaria. And a lot of people in public health said, no, profit is evil, and you can't work with them. They're all bad, and all we need is more public money and more doctors and nurses and medicines, because we already have everything we need. And then there were others of us saying, well, no, we need to innovate so that we can reach more people, so that we can make products that are more affordable, so that we can make them more effective. And so it's that argument was there, and I thought it was the biggest argument on earth at the time. But this, compared to tobacco control, it was nothing.
Yeah,
and we won that argument, by the way.
Oh, good.
I saw that change happen.
I'm not used to this level of frustration, Charles Gardner. I was a coffee roaster at Starbucks. I had a spectacular job roasting coffee, tasting the freshest coffee, and learning about coffee, and just being and it was fun, and I liked it. And I never met anybody who, when I said I roasted coffee for Starbucks, no one ever said, oh, fuck Starbucks. It was never like any conflict or anything. And then suddenly you're a vapor and you're trying to advocate for this. And I'm just not used to this level of frustration.
You were a shill for big coffee.
I was a shill for big caffeine,
Big caffeine,
yeah,
right. And by the way, caffeine is the most widely used psychoactive drug on earth.
Yes, exactly. There was a meme recently going around. I don't remember. I saw it on Twitter about when someone says, don't talk to me until I've had my morning cup of coffee. They're basically saying, don't talk to me until I've had my dose of morning drugs. Right?
Yeah. This is my favorite coffee mug. I can't figure out where there it is.
There you go. Oh, don't get me started. Yeah. Don't get me started.
That's the thing, man.
Don't get me started.
Look what you've done. You got me started here on this conversation.
Well, sorry.
No. I'm so incredibly passionate about this now.
Yeah.
And I work with so many like I mentioned Jeff Zamora, I work with so many incredibly competent, passionate people in this community, in INNCO as well, and in the Secretariat. I want to compliment all of them who sometimes they're working for little or no pay, and so many people are doing this just pro bono, and because they want to save lives. And then, it's universally incomprehensible to all of us that there are people trying to kill us. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's not a pleasant thought to think about.
Yeah, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah. Good Lord. Anyways.
Here's the message. Don't smoke, but also don't stigmatize smokers.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah. Sorry. I keep cutting you off. I'm going full New York on you here, Charles, and I apologize.
Don't stigmatize people who use safer nicotine. The stigma needs to end.
I completely agree, and I think nicotine stigma is gonna stick around a little bit because it's so heavily associated with cigarette smoking, and we spent so many years as a country just vilifying cigarette smokers, just the bottom rung of society, dirty cigarette smoker people,
Right.
And that's just the way it is. And that's one of those narratives that it's really difficult to turn around. When you see a group that's like rights for smokers, even I kind of like, really? Rights for smoker? Okay. I mean, I'm on board. I'm here for it. Personal freedom, We're just so used to vilifying users of things that we might not ever use or we might not agree with them using. Our default is to stigmatize them. It's just the default setting.
Yeah. But the language has also shifted. So it was about smokers. 30, 40 years ago, it was about reducing smoking related. So that's smoking tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so it kills people. So that's bad. And so then tobacco must be bad. It's just a plant.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a plant.
It's just a plant.
And one of the things in tobacco leaves is nicotine. So nicotine must be bad. Right. And then tobacco, nicotine, smoking, those three different words, which mean very different things, get conflated, and they're used interchangeably in a lot of the tobacco control literature. Very unfortunate. So the American Medical Association has at least twice now, tweeted out that there is no safe nicotine product. Like, where are they going with that? Because are they not aware that nicotine patches and nicotine gum are available over the counter in every pharmacy, almost anywhere in the world, that they're on the World Health Organization's essential drugs list?
Right.
Because they help smokers quit. You can't. It's literally a falsehood to say that there is no safe nicotine product. They're safe. Or safer, I should say.
Safer.
I did refer to them earlier as harm reduction products. They do have side effects. If you read the small print on your box of nicotine gum, it has a shitload of side effects there. Just like every other medicine you can buy.
Right,
it has,
sure.
Like, this will give you hiccups or something, but it's there.
Yeah, it's there. Well, and safer is a real thing, and one thing I think you're right, there's a little bit of risk. Vaping's a little bit risky. It's not completely safe. There's a little risk involved.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know the long-term consequences.
We don't. I mean, we know the 15-year consequences, I guess. Is that how vaping's been around roughly, 14 years, something like that?
I go with 15.
Okay.
Let's go with 15.
Let's just round up.
It's almost 2022 anyway.
Yeah, it is almost 2022. So 15 years. So we have 15 years of data,
of safe use,
lived experience, success stories over and over and over and over and over and over again.
68 million adult nicotine vapors worldwide.
Yeah. How many anecdotes is enough anecdotes? How much data is enough data? How much science is enough science? None, right?
Find me a single confirmed death that's attributed to vaping nicotine.
Yeah.
In 15 years.
I couldn't.
No, I mean, there is none. There is none.
Right.
So that's quite head scratching because, in 15 years, 130 million people have died from smoking.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers of deaths from smoking, I feel like they just don't shock people anymore. When you say 480,000 deaths every year, I tried to do some analogies on Twitter where I was talking about that's like a plane crash every 15 minutes, every day, all year, and everybody dies every day, all year long, day after day. That's what the deaths in smoking are like. And it doesn't seem to, I don't know, the public doesn't seem to care about smokers' deaths anymore.
No, it just seems to be grandfathered in, and in the end game now, which is a term used in tobacco control. It's not just about eliminating the toxic forms of tobacco; it's eliminating all forms of tobacco and nicotine. That's the goal. With 1.3 billion people using this psychoactive drug called nicotine, that seems to any rational person, that's not a practical, that's not a reasonable, it's just, no. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I don't like this shift, and I've seen this shift just in my Google notifications. I think I've mentioned this before on this stream, but back in 2010, I signed up for Google notifications for vaping, e-cigs, and nicotine. And so every day Google says, here's a bunch of news about nicotine. Here's a bunch of news about vaping. Here's the latest news about e-cigs and whatever. I've used it throughout the years for different videos and such as. And then I noticed, it was like 2019-ish, I started getting emails in the nicotine bucket that were suddenly not about smoking, not about cancer. They were about nicotine de-addiction. The nicotine de-addiction market. And I said, no, I don't accept this pivot. This is a puritanical style pivot, and I do not accept it. And I don't know how people are getting on board with it.
Well, because most people think that nicotine is as addictive as heroin and cocaine, right? And which is, by the way, comes from a 1988 U.S. Surgeon General report, which never said that at all.
Right.
But it gets misconstrued, misquoted, and it comes down to that kind of, how do we define addiction?
Sure. How do we define addiction?
Is caffeine addictive, or is it dependence forming?
Well, let's see. It's probably dependence forming because I believe, look who I'm talking to, I believe for addiction to be the proper term, there has to be some sort of harm involved. Like, despite the continued harm of using it, you still use it.
So now here you have a new product, like a hypothetical product, right? Mm-hmm. That is, let's say, 95% safer than smoking. It's still harmful, right? But because there's nicotine in it, it also is bringing some potential health benefits, like reducing your risk of Parkinson's disease, senile dementia, weight gain. It'll help you keep your trim, girlish figure, Grimm. And increasing your focus and attention and memory, which are those are not bad things.
No.
Without intoxicating you, and if you have any, it It reduces issues like rheumatoid arthritis and inflammation of different kinds, and so on. So when you weigh the benefits to people with neurodiversity issues against that 5% harm, this is something that almost never happens in the tobacco control field today. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're all like excruciatingly talking about how much harm is there in nicotine vapor, but we don't, like with any medicine, you would look at safe and effective, right? And the safe question is weighing the side effects of that medicine against its benefits to health. We don't do that with consumer nicotine products, but because that whole side of the equation of the therapeutic benefits of nicotine doesn't get weighed in. It doesn't count.
And it probably won't for a while, and I'm just trying to be realistic about this. It's a hard sell enough right now trying to convince people that nicotine isn't the devil. It's going to be an even harder
what
sell.
I'm telling you is this is one of the ways to convince people that it's not the devil.
Yeah.
In the same way, people used to think that cannabis was the devil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look how wrong everybody turned out to be about cannabis. That's one of the things that I keep thinking about is all of the lies I was told about weed as a youth and an adult and a young adult. And then fast forward to when I'm 40 years old and I pick up cannabis for the first time and start becoming a regular user, and I go, oh, so that was all bullshit.
Yeah. Right. But I think there's no question, one of the things that helped to tilt public opinion in favor of legalizing at least marijuana was the concept of medical marijuana. Now, I don't use THC. I don't use cannabis. I can speak as an outsider here. I have used it. I know what it's like, and I have nothing against it.
It's a lot different now, Charles. It's a lot different now.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm just saying that one of the things that helped to change public opinion was this concept of medical marijuana, and it was very controversial in that community, in the advocacy community at the beginning, for exactly the same reasons that you might react against therapeutic nicotine or medical. Nobody wants medical nicotine because we're not diseased. Sure. We don't have an illness. And people in the cannabis community said exactly the same thing. We don't have a disease. What are you talking about? We're not addicted. And it's questionable whether addiction is really a disease. I mean, in the same category of what we normally think of as diseases.
Sure.
And addiction does require harm, right? So then, okay, it's not addiction. Okay, it's dependence. What doesn't sound as bad, and addiction has all kinds of stigma words associated with it. Mm-hmm. But I think the nicotine is probably one of the most fragile cards in this entire house of cards that's been erected to try to kill us, which includes the gateway myth and popcorn lung and seizures and EVALI and
myocardial infarctions happening before they started vaping, but attributed to vaping. Thank you, Stanton Glantz.
And let's not forget erectile dysfunction. And on and on and on. Vaping causes male pattern baldness. It ruins your gums. It'll make you blind and deaf. There's Stan.
He's befuddled. There he is, being befuddled.
I like that. I wish I could make him pop up on my screen like that.
No, it's not a power you want to have.
So it's like there's not a single organ system that has not been highlighted out as something that must be harmed by e-cigarettes or other safer nicotine alternatives, and it's just getting kind of cuckoo. I was joking today, saying sudden infant death syndrome. Nobody's come up with that one yet. And it turns out 2018, yeah, that was there too.
Oh, no kidding.
Vaping causes sudden infant death syndrome. It's cuckoo.
All
it's
right.
nutty.
Well, you can just make stuff up. You can just make stuff up now.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They absolutely do. And it's, you have this concept of activist-based evidence-making researchers. They exist.
Yes.
And in fact, they get a lot of positive reinforcement, and they get more grants if they all keep saying the right things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, vape advocacy and activism has made me a more cynical person, which I've never been in my life. I'm always an optimist. I'm always skeptical, but I've never really been a cynical person. It's kind of made me a little bit more of a cynical person, and that upsets me.
I think the last thing that we want in public health is for the public to lose faith and trust in public health authorities. That does irreparable damage as that faith and trust is eroded. It goes beyond the field of tobacco control to other areas, like, there might be a pandemic coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how, if people don't trust what the health authorities are telling them, and they're all going off to Twitter and Facebook and getting their health information there, we're basically fucked.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean,
this is the post-enlightenment world we're entering now, if we're not already there.
It kind of takes me back to something Michelle Mitten said. I love Michelle Mitten. She's one of my heroes. She's just brilliant. And she was talking about this idea like that we don't ever get – all we ever get is targeted messaging. We don't get the data or in a graph that we can understand. We get their interpretation of the data in a graph that is presented how they want us to understand it. It's very targeted messaging, and that I think is overly dangerous, and I don't like this practice, and I don't know how to do anything about it. Other than ignore mainstream media, which is such a cliche thing to say, but I don't know any other way around targeted messaging. That is eroding trust, I think, in science.
I think I was talking to Michelle about this. Like, can we do a Freedom of Information Act request to actually get the data? But that's still, we suffer from the problem of how the data is presented. So when teen vaping increased in 2018, the FDA infographic showed the percentage increase. I can't remember what it was. 78% increase. And it's like a huge number.
Yeah.
But it's an increase on a small number. So it's a percent increase on a small number. And it went up.
Mm-hmm.
And then now teen vaping has dropped 62%. It dropped 42% over just the last year. So the FDA infographic just neglects the change, absolutely silent on the change. And it simply presents the absolute number. 2 million teens are vaping.
Right.
That sounds like a big number. That's a big pile of teens. And so it's very deliberate. And I don't completely understand what's happening in the FDA, because I know there are a lot of people there who do understand the concept of tobacco harm reduction and want it. But what they could be doing is softening the ground for the authorizations, the Pmta authorizations that should be coming from all of the 6 million applications they received.
Sure.
There should be some of them, and hopefully they're not all big tobacco company products. I fear they will be. But they could be softening the ground. They could actually be coming out in a way that informs members of Congress and journalists and the public so they know what's coming. Excuse me.
Sure.
But they've deliberately not done that. And in fact, their infographic came out with that 2 million number. Mm-hmm. And then in very small print, it says, and among the teens who are current users, and then in gigantic font, it says 1 in 4 are vaping daily.
Right.
And this is clearly caused numerous members of Congress to misunderstand what the truth is.
It's intentional, but FDA, I feel like FDA is kind of screwing themselves by doing that, because they're creating this doubt, and then the politicians will freak out and then get mad at the FDA. It's like they're doing it to themselves on purpose.
And at the same time, they're under immense pressure from Congress.
From Congress, because of the information that they put out.
Where most members of Congress are actually profoundly misinformed about these issues.
By the FDA.
I would like a little hint for everybody who's an advocate here that I used to work on the Hill in Washington, D.C. Members of Congress don't make any of the decisions. It's 20-year-old kids who are their staffers in Congress who are making the decisions. And there we have an entry point. So if you can find ways to reach the staff of a member of Congress, or a senator or a member of the House, we're just talking about the United States now for our international listeners. That's the way to get people on board, educate the staff. And some of them, by the way, some of them are probably vaping.
Definitely. I just feel with the sheer amount of vapors in the United States that there has to be people working on the Hill in D.C. that are vapors, just by odds alone.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
That's true. I mean, so the data from the National Health Interview Survey shows 4.5% of U.S. adults, so everybody 18 years and older, are current users of e-cigarettes. And the definition of current use for adults is basically daily or regular use. Is basically what your common sense would tell you current use means. Completely different from the definition with teens. Mm-hmm. And but if you look in and you segment the adult user groups, I mean, by the way, that's 11.7 million people.
It's a big number.
Yeah, because there are 17 times more adults than there are high school kids. But that's a lot of people. But if you segment it, the rate of vaping is highest among young adults. Right? It's very age specific. So the highest rates, and by the way, the highest rates of vaping by age group coincide exactly with the steepest rates of decline in smoking. I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, couldn't possibly be product substitution. That'd be insanity.
No, so when you're talking to people, the 20-somethings who are working for members of Congress on the Hill, who are advising their members on different policies and different legislation, I guarantee there are some allies there.
Yeah. Hopefully there are some allies there. We've been going almost 2 hours now, so I'm going to wrap this up and I'm going to read some of these super chats, but not before I get your hot take on what do you think the future of the PMTA. Will a flavored product, be it just menthol, mint, or otherwise, be authorized by Food and Drug 2022?
No. I hate to be
Come on, Charles. I'm trying to motivate people here to.
I hate to be doom and gloom, but I think for the short and medium term, you can just read the tea leaves here. The writing on the wall is they're only going to authorize these shitty tobacco flavors. And this is, FDA actually knows what they're doing. but they're playing for an audience, which is members of Congress and the public and the journalists, and how the journalists are going to play it. You can look at the actual numbers in the National Youth Tobacco Survey, and you can see that the percentage of U.S. high school kids who say that they're vaping Juul now is 0.6%. But Juul is still their whipping boy, even though Juul is only tobacco flavor. So, and the shit will hit the fan if they authorize Juul. That people will go ballistic. They'll go nuts over that. And almost no teens are using it. 1 out of 200 kids are using it. It's passe now. That fad is done.
Yeah, the Juul fad's over.
But the animosity toward Juul and the irrational moral panic around it only appears to be growing.
Yeah.
And any flavor, they've created that myth. We were talking about bicycles before. You've heard me say, probably seen me, basically, 9 out of 10 of the people who actually own an e-cigarette device and buy the products are adults, not teens. Mm-hmm. 8 out of 10 of adult vapors prefer flavors, which, like, everything's a flavor. So what I mean by flavors in this case is the ridiculous fruit, dessert, or candy flavors, or mint or menthol.
Tobacco's a flavor.
And 8 in 10 teens are using what they call flavors, anything other than tobacco flavor. It's like no surprise, because 8 in 10 vape liquids are flavored. And so you get this bicycle analogy, which I thought it was really clever when I came up with this.
Can I hear the bicycle analogy?
Which is, if 8 out of 10 bicycles are red and 8 out of 10 teen bicycle riders ride red bicycles, would you assume that the color red causes teen bicycle riding? And would you assume that banning red bicycles will reduce teen bicycle riding?
That's good. That's a good analogy. That's a real good analogy.
That's the logic they're following.
Yeah, that Spock would be upset with that. Spock would be upset with that 100%. See, my dream, my pragmatic idealist dream is for, like, Robert Califf to come into the FDA, deep dive into some data, deep dive into some science, and just tell Congress to shut up and let us do the science. Let us be the scientists. Let us hold these products to our standard, and shut up Congress. And we're going to approve a Juul menthol, and we're going to approve mango e-liquids, and we're going to authorize. We're going to authorize the menthol Juul, and Congress can shut up about it. And we're going to authorize mango e-liquids, and Congress can shut up about it, because we're the FDA and we follow science, and you can't be bullied into not following science. That's my ideal world.
Right. So, I mean, the silver lining, or the positives here, are that an increasing number of very respected tobacco control researchers have seen the light, and which includes the SRNT 15, the 15 past presidents of the world's top professional society in tobacco and nicotine research. I guarantee they have the credentials, they have the gravitas, to approach him and his senior staff, and Mitch Zeller, who, by the way, he's a lawyer, he's not a public health person, and
he knows better too. Mitch Zeller knows better.
Yeah, but again, it's a lot of the play here about how they're informing the public it's coming out of his shop.
Targeted messaging, but he knows. I don't believe this ignorance that Mitch Zeller is feigning. He knows. He's seen the science. He's said so much. He knows.
Yeah, but and I have to be sympathetic with him because whatever he does, he's walking in a minefield. between the pressures from Congress and the huge amounts of money that are being spent to manipulate public opinion by Bloomberg Philanthropies and the Truth Initiative, channeled through Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and Parents Against Vaping and all these, kind of front groups for the church dogma, which rejects harm reduction, rejects the concept of safer nicotine. He is really, it's not a position I would want to be in.
No. Look, me neither. But man, at some point, just stand up for the science. You can't go wrong. Because they're right. If FDA said we're authorizing a menthol jewel for the protection of public health, we are authorizing mango and fruit punch e-liquid bottles for the protection of public health because the science says so. The science says so.
Right. Let's going back to the earlier part of this conversation. A lot of scientists can be mistaken.
Yeah. Look, I know.
And so there is that. At the same time, a lawyer is not trained to think in scientific terms. They're
Sure.
They're trained that you win by having the best argument, and that's a different.
Yeah.
It's a different problem-solving skill.
Well,
Where to go with that?
Look, this is going to be. I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate you. I appreciate that award. I appreciate what you do on Twitter. I'll have a link in the description if you want to follow Charles on Twitter. I'd highly recommend it. Charles is what I would consider a classic vape advocate in that he tries as much as he can. I'm talking about you like you're not even here. He tries as much as he can to get out of the bubble. I see. Every time an anti-vaping tweet pops up in my timeline, Charles is right there with something to say and a graph of some sort. And that's honestly what being a vape advocate is. I feel more shouting to the echo chamber, which we all love doing.
Another shout out to Skip Murray, who has
100%.
counseled a lot of us on being respectful and being polite.
Yeah. Yep.
About responding to the nonsense with just evidence.
Yeah.
Just straight up. Or even if you start to look at the literature about how to react to people who are in their own echo chamber, present a reasonable sounding question. Like, well, how do you feel about this? Or what if that happened? Or so I could do this so much better. I could also try to break my addiction to Twitter. Might be a good thing. And I think the key thing is that we stick to the verifiable evidence that's in peer-reviewed studies, that's in official government surveys and public statements from respected scientific and public health organizations around the world. And it's all out there. I mean, if you just could sit somebody down in a chair, and not let them leave for a few days and run through the evidence, like you could convince anyone, but do it respectfully.
Yes. Yes.
And don't hit them with this thing.
Don't hit them with the INNCO award. And that's an important thing to remember. And I try to remember that. I get caught up in, we all do, right? Because it's a very personal thing and it's something I'm very passionate about. And I oftentimes let my emotions get the best of me, and I've deleted tweets that I was like, okay, well, that was a little much, Nick, But yes, and especially, and this is something that Danielle and I have talked about in the past, and that is crafting your message for the recipient. If you're talking to someone on the right, this is how you present this argument. This is how you present your whatever, your stance. someone on the left, someone on the middle, here's how you present it. Someone who's a lawyer, here's how you present it. Someone who's a economist, here's how this gets presented. So it's different. It's literally different for everybody, because you're not going to be able to show an economist a randomized controlled trial. You know, I don't know. That was a bad example, but you know what I mean? You have to craft it for the person. And I think that's an important aspect of it too, along with being kind, empathetic, polite. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
We've just agreed on that. Let's see how well we can stick to it.
I will. Hold me accountable, Charles. Hold me accountable. One more time, thank you, Charles, for coming out. I'm gonna whip through some of these super chats that came in. I apologize. I did see them coming in, but we were having such a great conversation. First out of the gate was my man Fishy, Mr. Web Cramp himself. He says, if you love the work that Nick and Charles put in for advocacy pertaining to vaping, please do them a solid and click on that like button. I would really appreciate that. That would really help out my YouTube a lot. YouTube doesn't, they don't love vaping or vape videos. And so any positive likes I can get on my video to maybe get them to a few more people would be super helpful. Dave Lloyd, that is very gracious of you. He says, Nick, you are a king. You are a king among men. I don't know how true that is, but I like that you said that, Dave Lloyd. I like that you said that. Pam, the lovely reluctant Pam Cakes up there in Canada, well-deserved award for our hero. Don't tell me that I'm your hero, because your heroes will fail you. I have one hero left that hasn't failed me, but your heroes will fail you at some point. But thank you, Pam. It's very appreciated. The wee baby Seamus says, thank you, Charles Gardner, for all that you do, and very much thank you, Nick Green, for all you do. Without you guys, we would be much more worried. Appreciate that, wee baby Seamus. And, you know, I'm not saying don't be worried. I'm worried literally every day. And the worry is kind of what motivates me a little bit. The worry motivates me. I worry about people not being able to get vaping. People email me, DM me all the time from states where there's flavor bans have passed. New York is a big one where people constantly from New York are like, how do I get my liquid? How do I do this? I worry about those people having access to that. So maybe a little bit of worry could be a helpful thing, but maybe I'm just sick. Slag, thank you very much. He says, thank you, Nick, Charles, INNCO, and Addy. Absolutely. Humongous shout out to Addy Tooney. He's a really great advocate on Twitter. He's a very respectful, level-headed, defender of vaping, and I really appreciate Addy Tooney on a whole other level. I've known Addy Tooney since Niagara Falls, since we went to Niagara Falls, and he's just been a defender of vaping. I appreciate Addy Tooney like few other people. And then lastly here from Tanker Monkey, he says, hi, Nick. I just want to say thanks again. Now, 3 years smoke-free. 3 years smoke-free. That's great. Yeah, congratulations. 3 years smoke-free. So that means you started vaping, maybe before EVALI, right before EVALI, 2019, maybe 2018? Oh, I don't know. You got into it at a risky time. Appreciate that very much, Tanker Monkey. Got one last one here from my cousin, Barbara. She says, thank you both. Vape long and prosper. Absolutely, we will, Barbara. Barbara is my actual cousin, and she is a non-smoking, non-vaping vape advocate. And she gets on Twitter, and she replies to politicians, and she has no skin in the game other than she's my cousin, and I love her, and she's taken up this cause with me. And I really, really, really like that a lot. Okay, one more from Jacob Ward. He says, great convo. Have a great night to you both. Yo-yoy. Yo-yoy, Jacob. I'll catch up with you soon, buddy. Hope you're doing good. And on that note, I think we will have a great night. I'll have a great night. Charles, it's like 10:30 p.m. there already or something like that?
8:30.
8:30 p.m. Okay, so past your bedtime. I'm just kidding. Have another cup of coffee. Get on Twitter. I'll see you there. one more time, thank you for coming out. And if anybody wants to follow Charles on Twitter, I'll have his Twitter linked down below in the description, as well as INNCO, as well as some other links that I'm going to include down there. The Denver flavor ban, the INNCO Dossier that I would really encourage everybody to read. If I had the time or energy, I would just start a live stream and read this from top to bottom for everybody, because it's really very good. And I guess in closing, I'm still optimistic about the future of vaping in the world on a global scale and in the United States. And I think as time goes on, it's only going to be harder and harder and harder for antis to continue doubling down on the small little things that they double down on all the time. And I think it's going to become so overwhelmingly apparent that it's going to be one of those, well, how could we ever have thought any other way? Of course vaping is less harmful than smoking. It's plain as day. That's what I'm waiting for, you know.
We will win.
We will win. I appreciate that, Kevin Yum. I put your chat up here, but you can't see the GIF. There's a funny little GIF there that's happening. The pear character bowing down saying thank you. Thank you, Kevin Yum. So, on that note, I think we're going to wrap this up. Appreciate you guys coming out. The TBN stream is for the Vape Defenders, and I appreciate the Vape Defenders being in the chat today. Go ahead and follow Charles on Twitter. Follow INNCO on Twitter. Do the calls to actions. I know I give you guys a lot of homework every other Tuesday, but this is a critical thing. This is the equivalent of standing up on the overpass with your sign every single day and just getting the message out there and, amplify other people's voices. I'm a big advocate of this because I'm well aware of my appearance. I know I have sleeves of tattoos and a throat tattoo, and I know that politicians will probably look at me and not take me seriously, and that's fine, but the people that politicians will take seriously, people like Charles, people like Cliff Douglas, people like Kenneth Warner, those are the voices that we need to amplify, and that's my mission, is to amplify those voices to get some real change in the United States for vaping and harm reduction. So, vape on, everybody. We'll catch up real soon. We got a big vlog coming up on Thursday. Maybe. There's a big question mark on this week's vlog, you guys. By the way, tell your friends. Big question mark. I have to take my computer back in to be fixed again. Thanks for nothing, Apple computers. So I'm just going to say good night, good luck. Vape on, vape it out. I don't have an outro, so we just wave at the end, Charles, like it's a parade. Bye. See you guys. Vape on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Follow INNCO on social media.
Follow